So similarly, if you have a fat cell and you want it to be less fat, you got to get more fat out of it than enters it. And the fat that exits the cell exits via a process called lipolysis. And the inputs to a fat cell are something called de novo lipogenesis, which is turning carbohydrates into fat, and reesterification, which is turning fat, like in a free fatty acid, into a triglyceride back into a fat cell. Each of those three doors is controlled by hormones. And so the purpose of nutrition or fasting or exercise or drugs or hormones or all these things is to manipulate those hormones in the direction of what I call negative fat flux, or what would be referred to in the literature as fat balance, negative fat balance. And the hormones that drive that are many. Insulin, hormone-sensitive lipase, testosterone, estrogen, cortisol being the five most important in my opinion. Maybe someone will disagree with that, but I think those are the five that rule the roost. And so, how do you manipulate those? Well, insulin seems to be the most important of the five, and there's no better way to lower insulin than to not eat. So the first thing that happened to that dude who went 382 days without anything but water and minerals is he basically had very low insulin levels. In fact, once he got into raging ketosis, which he got into by about day 7, his insulin came up only to prevent him from going into ketoacidosis, which was what would happen if he had no insulin response. In other words, if he was a type 1 diabetic, he would have died of ketoacidosis because he wouldn't have had the insulin to regulate the uptick of ketones. But if you or I did this, because we have a normal pancreas, we would actually make just enough insulin to suppress ketogenesis and keep that beta hydroxybutyrate level in the, kind of in the neighborhood of probably 7 or 8 millimolar, as opposed to getting north of 12 to 15, which is when you get into trouble. So, how do you manipulate insulin? Nutrition is the first way. If you can't fast, the next best thing is to reduce carbohydrates. Carbohydrates obviously are the most insulinogenic of food.